It's the third day of the festival. As fighters prepare to continue fighting hard for the championship, the spectators can relax and enjoy. The good weather allows the opportunity to walk along the historical reserve. The historical festival is in full swing, even outside its boundaries. Spectators and tourists alike enjoy the real beauty of the fair. Some of them one day, after attending, will join the ranks of reenactors. Others will simply continue to enjoy the show and the good weather. Families come to watch and to become familiar with history. Craftsmen create authentic jewelry, weapons, and everything needed for reenactment. And their work can also be seen. They devote their time to crafts that are almost extinct. The craftsmen are working throughout the festival, and they are an additional attraction for passers-by who can observe the lifestyle. This is one more side of historical reenactment. Everything on the counters is a result of hard work, made with ancient techniques that cannot be fully learned in these modern times. These ancient crafts must often be redeveloped one step at a time. Vendors are special. Many vendors are also the manufacturers of the goods they sell. At the festival, you can not only look, but you can also touch. You can hold the medieval products in your own hands. Visitors feel as if they're visiting a real street, filled with medieval artisans who create and sell a variety of items. This market seems almost immortal. Its charms are difficult to resist, and the goods on these counters tempt every passerby. The craftsman's art is as old as that of the warrior. It has its own subtle secrets and charms. Most people find the swords and knives to be the most interesting craft items. They made knives of this kind. Is it a knife or a dagger? It is a knife. This is an all-European knife, a replica of the 15th century knife. Knives were forged on a wedge, and that's why this one has a wedge-shaped geometry. The wooden handle can be made of ash or peach wood. Handles were made of bone. The knife is an extension of the arm of every hunter, explorer, craftsman, and warrior. It is a simple weapon, a companion tool, always useful, always at hand. But many people choose to be behind the counter rather than on the lists. A vendor is selling his goods, but he's not just about money. He puts his soul into the workmanship. Everything sold is a genuine replica of its historical analog. The vendor can tell you about the quality and the material, as well as the historical context of every item he sells. I sell replicas of medieval jewelry, such as brooches, bracelets, rings. It's all embossing. All items are handmade. Vendors can usually tell you about any item they sell, what and when it was worn, how it was used, and about all the materials and production process involved in its manufacture. All boys dream about sword fighting. We had wooden weapons, actually simple sticks used as swords, but gradually became kind of a hobby, and then step by step we began to practice reenactment. We started to make some items that resembled museum exhibits. I started to produce weapons for historical fencing. Vendors begin their working day early and finish after dark. Within this period of time, they often answer tourist questions. I have items ranging from the 8th to the 12th century and typical for northern regions and Kievan Rus, as well as Scandinavia. These are based upon archaeological finds excavated in Europe and on the territory of the former Kievan Rus. Also, I have some stylized items made with a certain level of fantasy. I study the history of costumes, the style that prevailed in those days, manufacturing technologies, and then I make a model in this style. The spirit of the Middle Ages is everywhere. Musicians entertain spectators and participants using medieval musical instruments, combining art and craft. The instruments are made in keeping with the old technologies. Everyone who has free time can listen to the musicians. People can dance, socialize, or just enjoy the beautiful music. We make some instruments on our own. We have a workshop for musical instruments. We've almost made a drum of our own. But as for the shell, well, we didn't make it, of course. It grew in the sea. But it was turned into a musical instrument by us. This bagpipe is from Galicia, which is in the northwest of Spain. This flute is called a rash pfeifer. It's from Germany, from about the 14th century and up to, well, it doesn't matter actually. It's an old German, or better to say, all European old musical instrument. It's a very reliable thing, it's very loud. An indispensable attribute of street musicians is loudness, and it's natural because loud music was played in the streets, while in the castles musicians played music a little quieter. We are outside now, so we are playing loud music for our guests and participants. No significant event could happen in the Middle Ages without music. It's an important part of the festival. Music raises the fighting spirit of warriors, entertains, and makes a contribution to the unique atmosphere of historical reenactment. Not only the ability to play music, but also to dance, improvise, and create an interesting show is important. The spectators reward performers with attention, recognition, and fame. Recognition comes to those who earn it. Musicians are members of the historical movement and are a special community with specific features. We are musicians and reenactors. We wear Central European clothes of the 14th century, and we use the corresponding entourage. We play old European music, but only that which survived to our day thanks to history. Old notes, or which was transferred by people. Old branlas, saltarello, notes that survive to our days. Old march tunes. Everything is purely traditional. But not everyone likes bad pipes and flutes. Some people like the sound of metal better. Blacksmiths sell the items they produce and repair weapons and armor of fighters. In fact, many fighters could not come to the lists at all without their help. The heavy blows of opponents often deform or break armor and weapons, so that warriors need professional help to repair them. Skillful craftsmen can repair armor within minutes, so that fighters are ready for battle. Metal and fire can be like magic, and that is why there are still people who want to do this work and who enjoy it. The blacksmith at the festival is a history expert. In addition to mastering the basic skill of his art, he must also understand what he makes and the techniques of armoring, as well as weapon making, that were used in the Middle Ages. Here we see a duel, which is a fight 1 versus 1. The warriors are fierce, and they don't spare each other's outfits because both want to win. This is battle. No place for weakness. And, as a result, many fighters will end up in the blacksmith's shop after the battle. Many blacksmiths once fought on the lists, and in fact some still do. Many fighters often have basic skills that allow them to perform needed repair to their own armor. Here, for example, we see a Polish fighter, Martin Garcia, asking blacksmiths for help. But he needs only tools. A few precise movements, and his helmet is ready for use. The damage was repaired. Without this help, the fighter would have been unable to fight without keeping spare helmets on hand. People are working all day long, selling their goods, chatting with others, and practicing their trade. Some try to master new skills during the festival, like forging metal or minting coins. But it is impossible to learn everything needed within just a few days of the festival. It's a great moral satisfaction to look at the craftsmen, their work, and to root for your favorites. In general, I'm gonna relax. Some people become so excited that they continue to train constantly. It is a difficult process, especially because this type of study was taken very seriously in the Middle Ages. Here we see Artyom Terekov, who has decided to try his hand at a new craft. He is minting his first coin. Just look how it was done in those days. After several precisely executed operations, the craftsman will have a coin in his hand. What is the most difficult thing concerning blacksmithing? Are you an apprentice? No, I'm already a master, but you can and should learn all your life. Every blacksmith who produces armor started off making simple things that required only basic skills. Gradually, as they gain mastery, they make things that are more complicated and which require special skills. The armor of all fighters was made in this way. In fact, the price of the armor depends largely on the skill and perseverance of the craftsman. It takes a long time for simple metal to transform into stunning armor. I want to master this craft because it's very interesting for me. It's not just an occupation, it's a great romance. I can say I communicate with steel, and it is very difficult and very interesting. I guess I'll manage to master this craft. A novice is going to be initiated into blacksmith. He has to kiss a sledgehammer for that. Okay, that's enough. The baptism is finished. I'm going to try to make a small horseshoe today. This young blacksmith is working independently for the first time. But he needs to learn many skills. He needs to keep working to improve his skills. It's hard work. But the results will be superb craftsmanship if he works diligently. Just look how quickly he can work. This is just the beginning of his career. Apprentices start with horseshoes and slowly reach the point where they can make weapons. That is the way of metal objects in the olden days. It was the strength of a blacksmith's arm, the weight of a blacksmith hammer, and the anvil, which brought into being swords, horseshoes, and other necessary items. Non-combatants are resting and chatting while fighters prepare for buhorts. The so-called non-tallied buhorts are held for those who have not entered the national teams but who want to fight on the list. Some who spend the whole day, for example, behind the counter, sometimes want to feel the exciting atmosphere of the lists in the evening, and they participate in the battles. The word buhort comes from an old French word that can be translated into English as to strike. In olden times, it was part of a knight's tournament, where knights formed groups and fought using blunt metal weapons. Groups were distinguished from one another by colored bands. Buhort was an important part of battle preparation. In real battle, everything was the same. The only exception being that more men fought on a real battlefield. The swords are sharp, and the knight's very life is at stake. Today, however, buhorts are popular mass battles, held at historical medieval festivals. The number of participants on each side should be equal. But there are no restrictions concerning the number of participants. 100 versus 100, or even more, may compete against each other. But victory only goes to the strongest warriors. It is hard to withstand the power of strong Russian fighters, for example. But nobody gives up. All warriors will do their best to win. Every fighter is important to the festival, whether he is a member of a national team or whether he is an individual fighter. The referees guarantee that everyone obeys the rules. Before each battle, the weapons of participants are checked carefully. Then the teams line up opposite one another, and they wait for a signal. Here is a typical fight. Fighters move toward each other. No one hesitates. Those who fall must remain sitting and cannot rise to their feet. Only when the referee stops the fight will these warriors be allowed to rise. Each festival day ends with these non-tallied buhorts, where any individual fighter can participate. But for those mass battles, fighters on each side should act together as part of a single fighting unit, even if the individuals have met for the very first time. This is critical to achieve victory.